everybody, Dr. Tammy here. Oh, let me check my volume real quick. Oh, I'm so glad I did too, because it was turned down just a little bit. And sometimes you guys are always saying, turn up your volume, I can't hear you. So happy Thursday to you. I want to share a really cool topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and it has been a constant challenge. I don't know if many of you know this about me, but I'm actually on the autistic spectrum. And in fact, I didn't talk till I was almost 5 years old. So back then they didn't have the diagnosis of autism. So they didn't know what to do with that. They just thought that I was quiet or shy or, spoiled, and communication was really hard. Had a lot of sensory issues, and so noises and textures and clothes all felt weird to me, and I felt awkward and strange all the time. And it's kind of funny, I was at a lady's house tonight working on some wardrobe stuff for the new TV show, and she said she was fascinated with autism. We were talking about that a little bit, and she said, I think we're all on the spectrum. And I said, yes, I agree with that. We are all on the autistic spectrum. Autism is basically just, auto means self, that we are a little bit self-absorbed, and so we're all kind of on that spectrum. And some of us are a little bit more on the spectrum, completely non-communicative, just speaking in energy basically, and some of us are pretty, functional. I think where it shows up is in relationship and connectivity sometimes, and so it makes it feel really awkward when you're trying to make friendships or to have a relationship and things like that. So these are a few things that I have learned that can really help anyone, whether you recognize yourself on the autistic spectrum or not, or you know someone on the autistic spectrum. These are all things that can really help you with connectivity. So one of the first things is you want to make eye contact with people. So that's really important, and I think people on the autistic spectrum kind of struggle with that, because one of the things that happens is the eyes are the windows to the soul, and there's a lot of sensory input that happens with the eyes. So kind of we're scanning the periphery, or we're scanning for a threat, and it's really hard to kind of focus down and make eye contact with people, but that's really important. And really what you want to do is you want to exude some warmth, and you want to give them your undivided focus and attention and intention, and just be completely present with people, even people that you're just meeting and want to have some connectivity with. So it's very important that you're not looking around for someone else to talk to, or that you're really focused with them and hearing what they have to say. And be yourself, because if you're not yourself, then eventually when yourself comes out, they won't really probably want to hang around with you anyway. So it's really good to just kind of start out from the beginning, just being yourself and being authentic, because then they don't have to second guess later, like, who was that person that showed up and now it's somebody different. So being yourself is really important, and you want them to love you unconditionally. You don't want that unconditional, well, they like you when you're being nice, or they like you when you give them something. So being yourself is really important. And a lot of us don't recognize what our authentic, quirky selves really provide in value. So, it's kind of funny, in my son's classroom, when he was in a contained classroom, they were the interesting kids, and I would go help. It was the special ed class, and I just thought the funny, quirky things they said, I loved being in there, and I thought the, quote, normal kids, those other classrooms must be so boring. So you just need to align yourself with people who really love the value and the quirkiness and the funniness that you bring, and just be yourself. Be authentic and be vulnerable. You have to be willing to say, you know what, I have connectivity issues. When I get stressed, I kind of show up in different ways. One of the things that I just talked to my husband about yesterday was he's done extensive study in the stress world and with adopted and foster children. And one of the things that shows up is this attachment thing and how we attach. And he told me that, when you're young and you're little and you're learning these attachment styles from the adults in your life, you pick up those patterns. And so if you have a mother, my mother didn't breastfeed, my mother didn't hold me, she's very loving, but we had some attachment issues going on, right? So I never really learned to attach like that. Plus, being on the autistic spectrum, I had all these sensory issues, so I don't attach very well. Well, then I have these issues because I don't attach very well, or I don't attach easily or quickly. Then, with those attachment issues, when someone does something that I perceive as a threat, which I work a lot on my assume positive intent, But when I perceive a threat, I'm very quickly to detach. And it's very erratic, and he says that there are different types of attachment styles, and mine is a disorganized attachment style. So I'm being vulnerable with you right now, and I'm telling you my attachment issues. So when I get stressed, I detach, and people think I'm cold, and people think like, you know, I remember being in high school, which is kind of a scary, awkward time anyway, and everybody, you know, they're all friends, and they're all in these little cliques and stuff, and I was completely detached because I was just scared, and I felt, you know, threats around me all the time. So everybody thought I was a snob or aloof, and I was just like scared and in my own little world and stressed, and plus the teenager hormones and all those things that you go through, and you feel awkward anyway. So my attachment has been very disorganized. So that's something that I'm working on, because I really love people, and I want to connect with people, and I want that warmth and relationship, and I want them to be vulnerable with me and trust me. So sometimes those are things that you have to work on. And I want to remind you that you are not broke and you do not need fixed. Case in point, you are not broke and you do not need fixed. But if your life is not showing up the way you want it to, and you don't have a lot of warm, connected relationships, or you want more, then you might need to look at some of these things just a little bit, and how you connect with people. You know, I stopped by and bought a bottle of wine on the way home, and I was thinking about all of these things that I was going to talk to you about tonight, and I really embraced that. And I was very open and warm to the people that were checking me out. You know, you walk in there to guess who, and they're all really friendly anyway. And it's easy because they're already kind of in a friendly mood. And so connecting with them was really easy to do. And so I kind of felt warm fuzzies when I walked in there, which was nice. Which is the next thing I want to say, look for common threads. So if you're in conversation with somebody, maybe you're both moms, you know, maybe you're interested in, or you do different careers. I'm a doctor, and maybe that's a lawyer, but what do we have in common? We're both moms, and we can talk about, you know, the vulnerability of being a mom, and having to make sure you got the meals cooked, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So look for those common threads. Look for things that you love. So when I was looking around at those people and Guess Who, I was looking for things that I really loved about them. So I saw this lady, and she had this really spunky, spiked hair, and I thought, I love that. You know, it's not something I probably have, but I love that about her. I said, love your hair, it's great. And you have to make sure that that's authentic, that when you give a compliment, that it's really true and authentic. And you can always find something about someone that you love. And really, I believe that we are all connected, that we are all really one under this umbrella of, you know, what our souls, how we are connected. And so if you're unkind to someone, you're basically being unkind to yourself on some level. So if you can find the things that you love, those commonalities, and look at those things. A lot of times when we don't like other people, the reason we don't like them is because they are mirroring some shadow sense in ourselves that we don't like. And so it forces us to look at that, and that separates us from who we really are when we have to look at those things that we don't really like, or that contrast that we don't prefer. So it makes us look at that, and that feels off when we don't like it. So that can get in the way of liking people. And if you want to have connection with people, you have to like them. You have to find commonalities in ways that you love them. Ask questions. I'm a novelist, I write, so I'm writing a Western right now, which is really fun. And now when I look at people, I'm looking for characters. So I'm looking for characters for my book. So I ask people their name, because I'm always looking for names for characters for my book. I ask them, you know, what do you do, and do you have children? And you don't want to be like nosy and creepy, and you don't want to be like one-sided. You want to share that conversation. But it's fun to ask them things, so I can work on things to get character development, and I can kind of pay attention to them and scan them and make eye contact, and, you know, kind of think about the shape of their face or the shape of their mouth so that I could describe them in my novel. And what you're doing when you do that is you are focused and in the moment with them, and you're showing them that you're interested and that you care. Because when you are disinterested, people don't like you. And that was one of the hardest things. I'm almost 50 years old that I'm finally learning that, you know, I've been detached, and I thought it was helping me. It's a survival mechanism, but it is not, and I needed more connectivity. So if you feel like you need more connectivity in your life, you're going to have to be a little more vulnerable, and you're going to have to really show up in a more loving, energetic way. Listen, don't think. You know, so many people I've been in conversation with, they are not good listeners. They're hearing what I'm saying, but they're thinking about the next thing that they're going to say. So just listen as if they were the only person on the planet, and it was really important that you knew something about them or everything about them. And don't be thinking of the next thing you're going to say. Just listen for a little bit and go, oh, okay. And then you can balance the conversation out with finding your commonalities and go, oh, I'm that way too. You have to be careful when you're looking for commonalities not to find those polar opposites. So if somebody says, yeah, I had a rough childhood and I don't know who my mom is and I'm adopted, you don't want to say, oh, I had a great childhood and my mom's awesome, because you're going to separate yourself from them. So you want to find those commonalities. Maybe you did have a great childhood, but maybe you felt a little alone. So maybe you could be vulnerable and say, oh, you know what? I kind of struggled throughout childhood because I didn't have a lot of friends. And so that made me feel a little lonely too. And then it kind of gives you this common ground. Now, you don't want to play yourself down, but you want to just find those commonalities, those connections, so that you can actually move forward in relationship with people. And the last thing, of course, is assume positive intent. I love to assume positive intent, because so much of the time we are looking for the threat in others. And if you are assuming that everyone is just doing the best they can, or that on some level, maybe even if they're not seeming to do the best they can, or they're threatening to you, that they're just scared little kids on some level. I love that experiment. And you can do that in your life when people are yelling. I had a lady like totally freak out in traffic on me the other day, and I just saw her as a scared little kid, and I assumed positive intent that she was just stressed out, doing the best she could, and it allowed me to be a little bit more open and energetic towards that. So a lot of little things, how to connect, and you can even do this with the loved ones in your life, because sometimes we forget to be vulnerable and tell them, you know what, I'm sorry I was, nasty. I got a little stressed. It's not an excuse. I guess it is an excuse, but this is where I was, and I really appreciate you loving me unconditionally, because really all we all want is unconditional love, but you have to be willing to give it to get it. We are a mirror organism, and so what we put out is what we get back. So you have to be willing to give this unconditional love, this unconditional contact, this focused, uninterrupted, undistracted attention to those people that we're trying to connect with, and being yourself and being authentic, and all these things really allow us to be more authentic and more vulnerable and more loving and connected in relationship. So I hope this was cool, and if you have stayed to the end, please click the little share button, and I love you all so much, and I just want you to have more warmth, relationship, and connectivity in your life. If you struggled, I feel your pain. Something I work on constantly, but I want to connect with you, and I want to be more connected with you. So please share your comments and your thoughts, and please continue to share these videos and tell me the things that you'd like me to talk about. You guys are great, and I love the support. See you soon. Bye-bye.